Welcome to Friday Tech Focus. I'm Eunice Reesberg with the Northeast District of the State Library, and we are going to talk about AI in the library. It seems like you can't turn a page without running across an article talking about AI, especially ChatGPT of late, how it's going to make all our lives easier, or how it's going to take all our jobs, or how it's just going to ruin everything. I can't begin to count the number of references I've seen to HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey lately. In particular, the quote, "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that." We're not here to debate all of that today or to try to predict the future. I'm going to start with a quick introduction to ChatGPT and some ways it and other chatbots might be useful in a public library. Then I'd like to hear from you, those of you who have already started working with one. What have you tried? What's been good and not so good? How do you get started? Well, you travel to openIA.com in your favorite browser and click Sign Up. It's very easy to create an account. It just takes an email address and setting a password. You'll see a few qualifications on the way in. It's free and they're looking for feedback. And OpenAI in no way guarantees the accuracy of the information you're going to receive. OpenAI might be watching, and please don't share any sensitive information in a conversation with a chatbot, ever. Always be smart about your or your patron's personal information. As usual for these Friday Tech Focuses, I'm covering something with both free and paid plans. I'm only working with the free plan, though. There are additional benefits for those who are willing to pay. Just last week, OpenAI announced about 70 third-party plugins to help people do various things with those paid accounts. It can tie into things like real estate listings or the weather forecast. There's even a trivia plugin used to generate multiple choice questions. Once you're in, this is your view. On the left, you'll see a list of your previous searches. It labels each new tab there based on the subject of your prompt. You can edit those to make it easier to remember. I'll warn you that it isn't backed up anywhere. So if it's important for you to be able to see this again, you should copy and paste it somewhere else. You can also delete it from this listing. In the center, some examples, capabilities, and limitations of ChatGPT. In the lower left corner, if you click on your email address, you'll find links to help, clear your conversations, settings, and to log out. There aren't all that many settings. General includes the theme for viewing ChatGPT, light, dark, whatever. And again, the ability to clear your chats. Data controls include setting your preference for your history and two-factor authentication. You can export your data and delete your account. The action starts here. Just send it a message. You'll see there's a reminder that it may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. User beware. Along with possible misunderstandings or just incorrect information, it has limited information of the world and events after 2021. And as one user commented, part of the charm of it is that you have to ask it the right question, and it will often lead you to an incorrect conclusion if you lead the question in any way. So you enter your question in the box and watch it just type right across your screen. The first thing I tried was to get help with this presentation. What are some suggestions of how a public library could use it? All interesting possibilities, and it would be able to do some of these things out of the box. Other things would probably need a bit of fine-tuning, like providing directions to library resources. It's probably not going to know where things are in your library without being told. It is possible to do some training of the system, but that gets into paid accounts, so I haven't done any. As I read more, there were repeated statements about the importance of the initial question, the prompt. There are things you can do to try to ensure you get what you want. Structure matters, just like writing math equations. So I tried this next. And very quickly, I had a 6-page outline for a course teaching the use of AI in public libraries, well beyond the limitations of the half hour I had this morning. But it was what I asked for. This is one of the common uses I read about often: help getting started on something. I'd have to go through this whole thing carefully to decide what I actually wanted to use and fill in content, but I'm no longer looking at a blank screen as I'm getting started. It would also be useful to know what sources ChatGPT had used to build that outline, so I asked. Remember, it's only using sources from before 2021. Current events are not its strong points. I've thought of a few things that might be useful in your libraries, and then later we'll talk about some of the things that you've tried already or other ideas you might have. So for summaries, in the chat box, type in TLDR : followed by the link to an article or a research paper. TLDR, by the way, stands for too long didn't read. Or do the same thing with the book title. Just make sure it was published before 2021. Now, it's recommended that you only do this with things that you've actually read already so that you can tell if it's accurate or not. So it's maybe helpful with those things that you've read before and don't remember very clearly, not sure on the plot, but there are ways that can be handy. Want to help getting started on a basic list for shopping, travel, whatever? This one went into a lot more detail than I expected when I decided to put it in, but it'd be nice. It could even be clarified a bit more if I'd indicated, for example, that I was going there for a conference as opposed to spending a week at the beach, which is kind of what it reads like. And by the way, no, I'm not going to Hawaii anytime soon. Here's a list that you might want in a library. It was longer than the page, so I had to crop out the last few items, but it had a lot of good ideas here, things that would be handy to make sure you've thought of everything as you're building a programming checklist for your library. And another variation on the get me started or help I'm stuck theme, help drafting an email. Another would be to ask for help brainstorming, something like, give me 15 unusual ways to teach measurement, or suggest 10 picture books for a story time about elephants. Have you ever got stuck with a formula in Excel or Google Sheets? You know, I spend a lot of time Googling for things that I don't use very often and can't remember how to write. You've got to be very clear with this. Think showing your work in high school algebra. And you may need to make some edits, but since it also describes how the formula works, that becomes a little easier. And then I think images might be one of my favorite things. Next time you're envisioning an image of a cat looking out of a rustic window, you can just have one created for you instead of digging through whatever services you use for images. Okay, you see the credit here. I didn't do this with AI. I just found it on Unsplash. Unsplash isn't one of them, but there are many image generators popping up. Canva has even introduced what they call text to image. I did, however, use the Bing image creator for painting of a public library exterior in the style of Edward Hopper and got this. I asked DALL-E for something similar, a public library in the style of Edward Hopper. Once again, the prompt matters. Since I didn't indicate I wanted a painting, it's a little bit different look. You don't see the brush strokes, etc. So one other reason to be cautious with this. This was a headline from a newsletter I received from the Washington Post a few weeks ago. Because it's such a hot thing, scammers are going to try to take advantage. Just like they were all over that cryptocurrency stuff a year ago, they're going to be jumping on the AI stuff. Here are a few recommendations that I wanted to pass on. Not to download an app that says it's powered by ChatGPT software. It's difficult to distinguish legitimate ChatGPT related apps from those that just want to make a quick buck off of you. Don't click on AI chatbot ads in Facebook or Google. They might be scams. Be careful with web browser add-ons that promise AI productivity hacks. They might also be scams. And of course, right after I put this slide together, OpenAI announced that they have launched an app for iOS, and they're still working on Android. If you want to play with those, fine, but just be sure you're actually getting their app. There are a lot of people out there pretending to be ChatGPT. Again, they want to grab your stuff, especially cash. As always, be cautious. One last thought about this. AI doesn't belong everywhere. It's a tool, and not all tools are appropriate to every job. You don't bake a cake with a hammer, for example. So play around, but don't force it into things that it just isn't going to do. You end up making more work for yourself rather than saving effort. This is really hot right now, so there are lots of entries into the market. Some are free, some are for fee, some are a combination of both. There are even two by Google. You've probably heard a little bit about Bard. Their Socratic one is for kids. Microsoft has added AI directly to its Bing search engine. All these dark background logos you see here are for the image creators, so that must just be a graphic designer thing. And it's not just standalone creators. In March, Zoom announced that it's leveraging OpenAI's technology to expand Zoom IQ, a smart companion for Zoom, by adding AI experiences that can optimize its customers' workflows. And around the same time, Slack, Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365 all announced their own AI integrations. So you're just going to be seeing it everywhere. So yeah, this image is courtesy, again, of Bing image creator. It's supposed to be someone using AI in a library. I haven't yet to decide how I'm going to credit these images when I use them in my presentations. So these are just a few of the ideas I thought were interesting. What have any of you done so far in the real world? I'm going to end the share and let's just start talking about it.
Eunice, I'm sorry to
Sure.
ask this,
Okay.
but what's the difference between what you did here versus the one where you asked it to do a painting style? And I've seen the painting style ones, and of course, I kind of blank when I think of a painting style. So your Hopper idea was great, because that's a really good one to kind of see, to kind of judge them by. But this is like kind of like, it's almost just, to me, it looks like it's pulling what you do when you search the clip file in PowerPoint. You know, like what. You know, I mean, not that that's bad. What this, I don't think this
Sure.
is terrible what this kind of did, but so what was this one versus the other?
I believe the prompts for this was just something like easy, like using AI in a public library. And I just went through the things. You'll notice if, and I don't know if you can see the detail on the image well enough, but it is, it's definitely not a photograph, although it looks kind of like it from a distance. It's just throwing things together. But I agree, it looks like something I could have found from Unsplash or Pixabay or whatever else that somebody put together.
So this is the same, and then this is this from the ChatGPT people too?
This one is from Bing.
This is the Bing one. Okay, yeah, I think I played with the Bing one too. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say I'm trying to look really hard at the hands. Can you talk about the hands thing a little? Because I find that very interesting.
Oh, I forgot about that. I was going to put it. One of the things to look for with images, at least that I've seen from, I think the article I read was specifically talking about DALL-E, but I'm not sure. The AI things seem to have a problem with the human hand. You'll see a lot of things with too many fingers or not enough fingers or just weird stuff with hands. These don't look too bad, although I'm not sure that that right hand on the person actually has enough fingers.
Yeah, I tried to look too. Yeah, but you
It's,
can really tell if they have their hands folded in front of them or something.
mhm.
You can really tell on some of those from the ones I've pointed out.
Sure. So I see there are a few things in the chat already. If someone wants to talk about what they've done, just raise your hand and we'll open
We
up your
got
mic.
Teresa already having some good comments there. And Abigail. You can pick on you guys, folks.
I've been having a lot of fun testing it out. I asked it to put together library program evaluation criteria because we were kind of reevaluating our programming process at Waterloo Public Library. And it gave a really awesome list of suggestions. It was concise, it was clear, it was well organized. That part was great. But then I asked it to provide the references it had used to compile that list. It gave me a nice list. And when I started double checking them, because I had read an article that said it likes to make these up, it had made up 6 out of 7 of them.
Really?
Yeah. So it makes up references that look spot on. It looks professional, looks like it should be something. It even chose sources that sounded credible. But they didn't exist.
Thank you for pointing that out. I had read about that too, and I did not go back and look at the list that I used for the presentation to see if that was real stuff or not. Yeah, this would have been handy if I'd still be in the old office while I was working on this. I could have picked your brain a lot, Teresa.
I'm having fun. So yeah, call whenever you want.
Anybody else want to share about something that they've tried already and was good or bad, indifferent, or people just having fun with it so far?
I did not use ChatGPT for this, but I had seen an article online that referenced a bunch of other AI sources.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was for clarifying, like if you had a grainy photograph from a long time ago, you were supposed to be able to upload it and it would make it sharper.
Interesting.
And that was actually the least interesting one I saw in this list, but I remembered it existed. And then I had a person come in who was trying to help out a friend who had lost a bunch of their old photographs of their family in a fire. And they had a really grainy photocopy of something. I mean, it was a color photocopy, fortunately, but we uploaded it to that tool and it did sharpen it up. So that was like, I was like, hey, this could actually have applicability for our patrons, that we should know more about these different sources. So cool. It was fun.
Abigail, I'm not sure if you want to get on mic, but I really like what you said about using ChatGPT to come up with catchy names for a program that they're having trouble with. So that just feeds into what you're saying, Eunice, about just like getting you to prompt. Yeah, she doesn't have a mic. She's saying fine. So. That's fine, perfectly fine. So I like that point. And she's had it draft emails, and I think what she's trying to get at is, let help you with something creative than go on something with facts. So right. Answering reference questions, maybe not so much, but like helping, brainstorm a name for something, yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And when I did the give me 10 picture books for a story time about elephants, I did not check several word titles that I recognized, but I didn't check to make sure they were all real titles. But things like that, again, just getting started, because I know for me and a lot of people, just that blank page is hard to get past sometimes. So if you can get yourself started and use something to start with is great.
Yeah, yeah. Marianne saying she had it come up with increasing book circulation in a library, and gave some decent tips. I would recommend too. I asked it how one should go about weeding a public library collection, and it didn't do a half bad job, kind of coming up with roughly what that was. And Stacy's saying PLA did a webinar that explained that language models like this don't actually use reference to generate content. So it's not reading articles for you. And it may a librarian limerick. I have heard limericks mentioned a lot, like if you asked it to make limericks.
That one I hadn't run into. That could be fun. Custom limericks for whatever the situation is you're going to do. You could build your reputation on starting your programs with a limerick.
Interesting. There's no librarian stereotypes we've ever heard of, though. So
no, none. But I think that list making. So it's like, okay, I've thought of this, this, and this, and this. What are the things that I've forgotten? And that's where it's sort of like a second opinion, maybe. Again, not necessarily always a reliable thing, but just seeing it's like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about whatever. So I'm going to include that with the rest of what I'm doing. Has anyone else tried anything of late, or you were all here just to hear somebody what it's to have Eunice be the guinea pig?
I was reading somewhere that some academic libraries were trying to look into making something that would, focus on helping students with writing and research and kind of prompting that process. And so that was some of the ones, and it had like a kind of like a development cycle of doing a research paper and kind of prompting through that rather than writing it for you. It just would help you push that along, which I thought was kind of a way to kind of discourage you from using it to write your paper, but having it help you move things forward, which I think is a smarter way than trying to like, oh, we're just going to ban it, because it's going to be too tempting for them to try.
Marianne is asking if I'd said I'd used it to help rewrite or edit something that I've already done. I did not, but that would be an interesting thing to see if it would do that, although that's potentially planting the idea of like, oh yeah, get something else and have it rewrite it so that you can hand it in type thing. But an interesting thought. Go ahead.
Sorry, but Teresa or Eunice, have you had any trouble with it operating? I've had it work once or twice on something and then completely just gum up. I mean, does it get overwhelmed, do you think, from time to time on?
I suspect so. I know the response times that I've gotten when I put in a prompt have all been very good, but I've heard that at times it can get very slow because it's pretty much still in beta. And they're testing to find things that work. And when they let too many, when too many people are using it at the same time, it can drag down.
I mean, I figured that could have been just a use issue versus it just having a fart and not functioning.
Could be. Yeah, I've not had it fail to produce something, and in fact, it generally starts typing out its answer almost immediately. When I've tried things, the images take a little bit of time to create, but not too bad. And whether that's because I tend to do this kind of work first thing in the morning and nobody else is doing that yet, or I've just been lucky, I don't know.
Stacy, oh, sorry. Go, Teresa.
Oh, I was just going to say I've had ChatGPT kind of just not, like Eunice was saying, it got really laggy at one point. But it did eventually come up with the answer. I've also tried Midjourney, and that did just completely choke on a couple of jobs, and I had to come back and try it again later.
Okay.
But when I signed up for that, they actually had a little notice that they have really high volume right now because everybody's hearing about this and wants to go in and try it out. So I think they're just getting swamped right now with,
Right.
they don't have the infrastructure to fully support everything yet.
I would say if you haven't seen the Midjourney one, that one's kind of fascinating. I didn't know what that was, and all of a sudden I've seen these pictures. I'm like, what is this crazy? It looks so realistic. And then I had to like, oh, these are fake. Like these are not real pictures. And it's wild what they kind of produce with it. If you take a look, they're kind of interesting groups to follow because I think the most fun they kind of had with it is like mixing up movies, or it makes very stylized looking characters when you say it's very interesting, but you can totally tell the weird hand thing, and they don't do a lot of hands on it on purpose. I think so. Stacy's saying she didn't. She had a limit to the character output. Did you see that?
I did not see anything that mentioned that. Teresa, did you?
I did run into that on. I'm trying to think what I tried on ChatGPT. I think I was asking it to list something, and I didn't think about my parameters very well when I put the request in. So it turned out being a very, very long list, and it kind of quit before it got to the bottom. So there may be some kind of limit.
Yeah,
it didn't do everything it should have.
Yeah, I have a coworker who's been using it for coding as like a starting point, even though it's perfect. And so he said more than once an amount of code has just been more than it can output.
Okay. Now, the longest thing I've come up with in that 6-page outline for the course was after I pasted it into Word. So that's how I got my page count. So that was the longest thing I've come up with, and it did all of that. But I can see coding especially is going to be pretty space intensive, I guess, is a way to put it. So there could be limits. I just didn't bump up against any of them, or haven't so far. So that is something to keep in mind. Any other questions or insights?
What do you sorry, but I have a question. Like, do you think this would be useful in taking over a lot of spaces that for kind of doing support, or do you see a lot of people running into this for call centers and stuff like that? I mean, there's kind of already that when you call some of these places, of course, but it's going to be probably more intense.
I'm sure that's a direction that some companies are going to try to go. I'm not sure how long it's going to be ready for that. And yes, you can do some custom training for some things, and it would be better than, a step beyond the chat bots that they use now that are just responding to certain keywords when they pop up an answer. But yeah, I can see it as a way places will be ready, trying to go, whether it will work or not, or how long it will be before that actually works. I don't know.
I mean, somehow different than when you talk to Alexa or your Google smart device or whichever.
Yeah, it's sort of the next step in that process.
They are trying to write books with it. I did know that. So if you see that coming through.
Yeah, somebody said that they'd done, how many books in a several month period using it or whatever. And I thought, oh boy.
I think the human being counted himself as the author, but bundled up all the text and
Right.
self-published it somehow. So coming to a library near you.
It's going to be interesting in the next few years, seeing how this, people try to use it for different things and, what works, what does not. Where you can tell that's what they've done and where you can't. It'd be very interesting.
And I've heard a lot about, because there's a writer's strike going on currently.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that the companies are real cagey about anything when they start talking about having AI. And, you can see how AI could, bulk write a script, and then you hire less, fewer writers to come in and punch it up,
Yeah.
It's the
People
same
that
sort
are
of
just fixers
premise.
instead of coming up with original content. Yeah.
Whether the AI came up with the original content is
right.
And then you don't have to pay it, and no residuals. And
yeah, well, especially since residuals are the problem anyway.
Right,
anyway.
of course. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole, more than you could, but you could definitely see how, that corporations are going to try and
yes,
plug
totally
this in anywhere they can, right?
But you've got to look at the pictures for the strikers and the writers' strike, because they come up with the greatest signs because they are writers. Anyway, unless we have any other questions, we're probably at an end for the morning. So did anybody else have anything, any questions, anything else they wanted to point out? Thanks for those of you who have volunteered your usage. That's helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.